I'm Jurek Kirakowski. I'm a senior lecturer in the Department of Applied Psychology, or nowadays the School of Applied Psychology at University College Cork. For many years, since the late 1980s, I've also been the director of the Human Factors Research Group. The Human Factors Research Group has engaged in the world of HCI, that is human-computer interaction, from the era in which computers were considered to be an adjunct to work, to now, where computers seem to be an important element of our daily lives. I was first interested in information technology. It must have been about 1963, when we heard the broadcast from the first Soviet satellite called Sputnik. I remember sitting in my kitchen, hearing the sound of the tele-broadcast from Sputnik, thinking, this is the new world, and I want to have some kind of part in it. Well, things got a little bit hairy after that, and I went to Edinburgh University and studied psychology, but I also realised there was a lot of interest in computer science and psychology, and so that's when I started to get involved with computers in a serious way. And as my psychology degree went forward, I realised that there are a lot of interesting questions that could be asked about our relationship to computers and to computer networks. The area of HCI that really fascinates me is the area of human experience of technology. A few years ago, my friend Kent Norman of Maryland University and I realised that this concept of experience can be divided into two different kinds of areas. One is what we call the qualitas, or the relationship that you have with the external objects, that is, the effect of the computer software on the user. The other area is what we call sensitivitas, and that is the internal reaction of the user in the face of information technology. And what I discovered to my surprise, I have been spending most of my working life doing, is trying to investigate this sensitivitas, the internal reaction of the person using information technology to the technology. At present, there is a lot of work being done which is of a rather informal nature, and that is of developers sitting with potential users and going through screens and asking the users what they think and observing the user's behaviour. This, of course, will improve designs so long as you have a good enough sample of users, but it's not actually proceeding in a scientific way, because the results in the end are all subjective. Not subjective from the point of the user, that is always important, but subjective from the point of view of the data. The data itself is subjective. I can see that there is a small element within HCI that is also interested in measurements, and the work of the International Standards Organization in promulgating standards ISO 9241 and 9126, as well as 13407, have been instrumental in making this measurement aspect of HCI more important, giving us, as it were, targets to measure in HCI. I find, to my considerable surprise, that I've been involved in looking at user experience since the late 1980s. My method of attack was to use questionnaires. Using a questionnaire, you can measure aspects of a user's experience, but much more importantly, you can look at what components this user experience consists of. You can look at the way the user's mind works when they're facing information technology products. And this led to the well-known 5 usability dimensions that we discovered with the SUMI questionnaire. That is, efficiency, affect, helpfulness, controllability, and learnability. Interestingly, these names already conjure up the image of somebody working in an office who wants to work efficiently, who wants to be in charge of his computer, who wants his computer to be helpful. We are now entering into a phase in our civilization where computing is ubiquitous. Everybody has a computer, and we're connected to computers all the time, not just during work. And so what I see is, as the challenge for my own work in the coming years, is to examine the way the dimensions of user experience are changing as our immersion with this technology changes, as we become more involved and as technology becomes more involved with us. It's interesting to see that in America, certainly, the majority of practitioners in what is now known as UX, or user experience, still use very informal, subjective methods of attempting to improve the characteristics of the software that they're working with. Usability experts will sit with representative end users, and they will observe end users, and they will talk to end users as they're working with the software. This does mean that software is going to become better, more usable, because a lot of this work is very valuable. There is a small amount of user testing, that is, trying to derive numbers that represent user experience. But although that was easier when we were talking about usability, it's now harder when we're talking about user experience. At least when we were talking about usability, we had a set of defined goals as given by ISO 9241 that we could actually try to measure. For user experience, there's no such clear and easy definition. And I think this is one of the challenges that we face in the next 10 years. What is going to happen, I think, is that IT products are going to become, in general, more usable and more suited to the lifestyle and the life objectives of the young user. We're already seeing that happen. Maybe there's been too much of a techno swing at the moment. I suspect that the techno swing is going to swing back, and there's going to be more of a user push in the industry in the next few years. We can see, for instance, apps on the market that are utterly unusable, and those apps fail, not surprisingly. Although usability on its own is not a guarantee of success, or neither is lack of usability a guarantee that a product will pan. If you think back a moment to the days when we had mobile phones and we had, for instance, the letters A, B, and C could be accessed by tapping the key number 1 either once, twice, or 3 times. you can imagine that is a really obnoxious user interface. Nonetheless, that kind of phone and SMSing through that kind of phone captured the mind and hearts of a whole generation of users. Nevertheless, what I do see is that as we progress through these next 10 years, things are going to be generally easier to use and more attainable. The emphasis is going to be on the user experience. That is, the extent to which products fit the lifestyle of the users and the way users, or people rather I should say, so the way products fit the lifestyle of people, but also the way people create their lifestyles to take advantage of the opportunities offered by the products. It's going to be a very interesting two-way communication between what technology has to offer and how people can fit that technology into their lives. At the same time, we are going to see an increasing dominance of large companies who see this information technology as a means of making money. And large companies will want to gather up people in informational silos from which they can't move, so that they're wedded to the company that's providing the services. This is actually not a comfortable position for a person to be in. And so the interplay between corporate strategies and people's sense of what they actually want to do is going to be a very interesting battleground to watch in the next 10 years.